Welcome to tonight's Planning and Housing Commission meeting. Vice Chair Alexander will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to call this meeting to order. Individuals wishing to address the Planning and Housing Commission are requested to complete a speaker card and deliver to the secretary prior to the item being heard by the commission. Please observe a 3-minute limit for communication, and once called upon to speak, please state your name and city for the record. Meeting minutes. Ms. Capilla, are there any speaker cards from the public for the meeting minutes?
No, Chair Longwell, we did not receive any.
For the approval of the minutes for the Planning and Housing Commission meeting for February 10th, 2025, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve.
I'll second.
A motion was made by Commissioner Alexander and seconded by Commissioner Sekuland. Please vote. Motion is passed. Communications from the public. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment on items within the commission's jurisdiction that are not listed elsewhere on the agenda. Please note that the state law prohibits the Planning and Housing Commission from discussing or taking action on these items. Please observe a 3-minute limit for comments. Ms. Capilla, are there any speaker cards from the public?
No, Chair.
Thank you. We have no items on the consent agenda this evening, so we will move to public hearing. Public hearing items this evening are 2 related to applications, so staff has requested to present these items together. The commission can ask questions regarding each item, take comments, and votes on them individually. First item is a general plan amendment to change the land use designation of a 0.86 acre parcel from general commercial to light industrial located on the east side of Promenade Avenue, approximately 170 feet north of East 6th Street, GPA 2022-0004, and then CZ 2022-0004, a request for change in zoning for 1 vacant lot from general commercial to light manufacturing. Applicant for both items are Netzer Admati and Johnny Greer. Brendan Daldy, Assistant Planner, will now present these items together.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair Longwell, members of the Planning Commission. It is my honor to present the 2 items before you tonight for General Plan Amendment, record number GPA 2022-0004, and change of zone CZ 2022-0004. For starters, we'll start off with our locational map and general location of the project site. It's going to be located on the northeastern corner of East 6th Street and South Promenade Avenue, approximately 170 feet to the north of East 6th Street. Parcel is presently vacant and approximately 0.86 acres in size. As always, I like to give the commission a bit of background on where the project started and how we got here today. So back in April 25 of 2022, they submitted a DPR. That was record number DPR 2022-0016. That was submitted, and at that time, the applicant was informed of the additional requirements that were required for their type of submittal, which was this general plan amendment and changes zone. Later down the road, we went to Planning Commission for the first time on February 6 in 2023, and that item was continued. Later down the road again, on February 21st, 2023, the Planning Commission continued the item again to give staff additional time to conduct their CEQA analysis. And in between February 21st of 2023 and today, we have completed that CEQA analysis, and staff determined that a mitigated negative declaration was needed to be completed prior to going back to you guys today. First of the two items, we have the general plan amendment. Located on the left is a visual of what it could potentially look like if approved today, outlined in black of the project site with that light industrial land use designation. The request is to change the general plan land use designation from its present general commercial designation to light industrial. Second of the changes is the change of zone. Located on the left is shown what would be proposed if approved today, outlined in black with the M1 zoning designation, currently zone C3. And that request is to change the zoning from C3 to the M1 light manufacturing designation. We have staff's analysis. As with all GPAs and changes of zones, one of the leading arguments is to make sure that it's consistent with all our goals and policies of the general plan as identified in our staff report, and also indicate that the surrounding zoning, general plan land use designations, and the surrounding uses around there today are compatible, which they both are. With that, we have staff's recommendation. Staff recommends that both the GPA 2022-0004 and CZ 2022-0004 are approved by the Planning and Housing Commission and the Mitigated Negative Declaration and Mitigation Monitoring Report, and approve the resolution and adopt the resolution, for 2660 granting both GPA 2022-004 as part of the cycle 2 of the general plan amendment for 2025. That concludes my presentation. Myself and the rest of staff are available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Regarding GPA 2022-004, do any commissioners have any questions for staff? Commissioner Woody?
Hi, thanks for the report. I guess the thing I wanted to focus on is the environmental impact study, because that was the main holdup here, right? That's what the 2-year delay was caused by. And so can you tell us a little more about the timeline on that? Because it looks like the report, which was included in our packet, which was that the initial study that we had? So it looks like that was signed off January, just a couple weeks ago. It has your name on it, Mr. Daldy.
Yeah, sure. Just so for starters, this originally came in as that DPR, and then they were advised that if they wanted to pursue some sort of light industrial land use, that they needed a general plan amendment and change of zone. Due to the unique size and shape of the parcel there was some circulation concerns of whether or not conceptually, whether or not this type of development can be done. And that's what ultimately led to those 2 continuances. In between that second continuance and today, it gave staff time to get those additional technical studies to actually pursue the CEQA analysis. And so when it was deemed complete back in January was really that time in which we solidified the conceptual look of what a development can compared to what our municipal code allows for today. And we kind of determined, okay, we can have a light industrial land use of, approximate size of 9,500 square feet. Therefore, we can pursue that corresponding CEQA document for these types of uses. So that's what kind of contributes to such a long time in between the two. Definitely the CEQA process, and then just working with the applicant to get a solidified conceptual idea of making it work for such a unique parcel.
Okay, all right, thanks. So I wanted to dig into the report a little bit here because, the conclusion was there were some significant or potentially significant impacts unless mitigated. It talked about, I guess, having the paleontologist on site when digging was going to happen, past 4 feet, that kind of thing. And then, but the part that I wasn't entirely clear about, trying to find the exact page here so I can point you to it. Okay, so yeah, the part I just mentioned about the paleontologist, that starts in section 14 for cultural resource sources on page 26. And then, that was really clear. I appreciate the commentary on that. But then following section 18 on page 32 of the study, so there are two items, two findings of significance. One says cumulatively considerable impacts, and the second one is substantial adverse effects on humans. And those are both listed as potentially significant unless mitigated. So, the discussion there talks about the cumulative effects, but I don't really see much in the discussion about this idea of substantial adverse effects on humans. So, which sounds pretty serious. So I was hoping there might be more explanation on how that is mitigated and what the potential adverse effects on humans is in the first place.
Yes, if I can understand your question correctly. So the mandatory finding of significance kind of encompasses a lot of the document, what it composes of. And so those two components about substantial adverse effects on humans and cumulatively considerable impacts does fall still underneath any significant or potentially significant unless mitigation is encompassed. So we would revert back to the cultural resources and where that paleontologically sensitive discussion talks about with depths about beyond 4 feet.
Okay, so is it maybe just a wording thing from this document? Because where it says substantial adverse effects on humans, that makes it sound like that would be, people who are in the area, Corona citizens, residents, but people who potentially might be working there, as opposed to, the archaeological record.
Yeah, it could be, substantial to the humans, just in the sense in where there's also potential for human bodies to be discovered as well. And so that's part of the mitigation monitoring report. Could be significant to anybody's family and that may be involved in that, but anything beyond 4 feet, it would be, significant to that paleo and both the human remains as well.
Okay, so, but when it says substantial adverse effects on humans, where the issue isn't necessarily, again, people who are alive or living or working in the area, because that phrase on humans suggests that's what it would refer to.
So this is our short form for CEQA. So why don't we go ahead and have the discussion, and I will tell you what the long form question is, but this is the short form that we utilize, and I will get that for you.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Coletta. Then that's the bulk of my questions.
Any other questions?
I believe when I was reading that, it also talked about the circulation, the VMT, but that it was mitigated because it was in the transit project area, deemed project. So that was the one that was flagged as significant, but it was taken into consideration being in a transit area, that it was acceptable. So that was fine by me. I thought it was interesting that the paleontologist would be needed on site in case of fossils, and yet both tribes that responded didn't need any follow-up, but that the contractor did find that is highly sensitive. So I don't have any further questions. Thank you. And a good report.
Okay, with no other questions. Ms. Capilla, did we receive any speaker cards or written comments from the public on this item?
No, Chair.
The public hearing is now open. No one wishes to speak, so we'll close it. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Comments, discussion to be had?
It looks like there may be a card being submitted.
These are 2 cards from the applicant. We're checking to see if they wanted to speak.
So while that's going on, so the question on the CEQA document says, does a project have environmental effects which will cause substantial adverse effects on human beings, either directly or indirectly? So that really looks at the evaluation. It can be in with respect to air quality analysis. Is the project resulting in thresholds that exceed AQMD standards? And if so, that can have either a direct or indirect impact on humans. So basically, the MND says that all of this can be mitigated to less than significant. So we don't have a situation where it's cumulatively considered to be significant and unavoidable. It's basically saying that as long as they're operating within certain thresholds, it's going to be acceptable, which has allowed us to do a mitigated negative declaration. Other other impacts could be related to aesthetics or something like that. So we look at that. So it's very generic in question on what that impact can be to humans, either directly or indirectly.
Okay, good. Thank you for the context.
Do the applicants wish to speak? Does anyone have questions for the applicants? Okay. Any motions?
I'll motion for approval of
Going to read it?
Planning Housing Commission adopting the resolution number 2660, granting GPA 2022-0004 as part of Cycle 2 of General Plan Amendments for 2025, and recommend that the City Council adopt the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program and approve GPA 2022-0004 based on the findings contained in the staff report.
Good job.
Is there a second? Thank you for saying
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Vernon. So a motion was made by Commissioner Sequelin and seconded by Commissioner Vernon. Let's vote. Unanimously approved. Moving to the change in zone, Mr. Daldy has already presented the item. So regarding the change in zone 2022-0004, do any commissioners have any questions for staff?
I have one quick question. So, the other thing that stood out to me, we're doing the general plan amendment and the change of zone, but there is no, plan or building attached. Is that in the works? Would that still come back before this body, for a precise plan?
Yeah, Commissioner Woody, to answer your question, the current light industrial warehouse land use that's being proposed and the warehouse that may be assumed in the future, that's a permitted by right use per CMC 17.44. Now, if they were to ever come in with a use that's way more intense and would require a major CUP or something that would require something that goes back to the Planning Commission as the approving body, then yes, it would come back. But today, as it stands, if they were to come back in, pursue their previously submitted DPR for that industrial building, then it would be by right at the admin level and it wouldn't come back to the Planning Commission.
So because we're making these changes, then it'll be permitted by right, basically?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a follow-up question to that. So they have not come back with their plans. It's going to be something that happens next, or are they already in the works with that?
So the industrial warehouse that was originally submitted couldn't move forward because it currently is a commercial designation from zoning and general plan. So in order for them to move forward with anything associated with their warehouse building, they would have had to get this approved first.
We'll stall
before-
until this, okay.
Yes. So essentially, whatever, after what happens today, they'd move forward with building and safety, ensure all of compliance with all their municipal codes, just like any other warehouse building out there, industrial design guidelines, landscaping, et cetera.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Ms. Kapia, did we receive any speaker cards or written comments from the public regarding this item?
No, Chair.
With that, we'll not open public, to the public. Please, do we have a motion for CZ 2022-0004, or do we want to talk about it?
No, I have a motion. That the planning, oh, you want to talk about it? Yeah, I know. I have a motion that the Planning and Housing Commission recommend approval of CZ 2022-004 to the City Council based on the findings contained in the staff report.
And I will second.
Perfect. A motion was made by Commissioner Vernon and seconded by Commissioner Woody. Please vote. Unanimously approved. Written communications. Has the Planning and Housing Commission Secretary received any written communications from persons providing information or seeking action by the Planning and Housing Commission?
No, Chair, I have not.
Thank you. Mrs. Coletta, anything to report?
No reports?
Do any members of the Planning Commission have any matters to discuss? Okay. Please note that there is a future agenda item for March 10th. That's CUP 2023-0015, conditional use permit for a 4,330 square foot religious facility on South Main Street. With that, we will adjourn the meeting. Next meeting of Planning and Housing Commission is scheduled for March 10th. Meeting is adjourned.